So Andrea, The Flame in the Flood was one of the last games that you and I checked out at Judges Week, and a game that I was really curious about after seeing the trailer for it because it has a really interesting aesthetic, and it seems like a game that you can kind of glean what you're supposed to do from the trailer, but not really like the systems at play and how the game works. And it was a rather difficult game, and so it was kind of fun watching journalists go up and fail at this game over and over and over again. And you seem to play a lot of it, and it seemed like a game that you would get better at as you played. So I'm curious, of all the times that you played it at this Judges Week event, did you get better at the game?
Yes, I did, and I actually went back to play this game 3 times at the event that we were at because I liked it so much. Probably the thing that had my attention for the longest, at this event. It's being created by a group called the Molasses Flood, made up of former Irrational developers who worked on BioShock Infinite. And they've got this really awesome little gem. It's got this fantastic art style, and it incorporates these survival mechanics in a way that's approachable, yet extremely difficult until you get to master them. So you're playing as this girl named Scout, and you kind of meet her as she's fireside with her dog companion, Aesop, and she needs to get downriver to get a signal for her radio, I believe, is the reason why she has to keep moving. And so you have to manage your kind of 4 emotional states while you're trying to get to the signal. So you have to manage your hunger, your thirst, your temperature, and your exhaustion. And that sounds like it's easy, but it's actually quite a juggling act because the levels tend to ebb and flow in a way where you have to constantly be monitoring, okay, have I taken a drink of water lately? Have I eaten something? Do I have clean water to drink? Okay, I need to find a church where I can sleep, or I need to find a campground, where I can start a fire and cook some meat. It was really much more challenging than I originally anticipated.
And it's something you want to get really good at, and it's something you can tell if you're starting to lose momentum and you're starting to have issues, and you tend to learn things the hard way. That what I'm I have dysentery now. How did that happen? How do you cure that? So you're constantly discovering new items in your inventory, and I think managing that inventory, for better or worse, if that's your type of gameplay, if you enjoy survival games like this, seems like the crutch of building up a skill at this game is getting an item, knowing where those items are and realizing what is in your inventory at any given time. And so if you go to take a risk, venturing out into an area that you've never been to before, possibly taking on enemies. There was a wolf you could fight that would show up at night, that you would know, okay, I'm prepared to make these, to take on these challenges, and the clock is ticking the whole time. So like I said, my first session was 9 minutes because I just immediately ran out of water.
Yeah, well, water is an important thing. I think one of the things about this game that I found, both challenging and exciting, but also a little frustrating, was that I wanted to explore more and take more time looking through my inventory and figuring out what I could use or what I could craft, what I wanted, Aesop to store for me. But there's this constant pressure to keep moving forward. And when you're on the river, if I haven't mentioned it already, the music in the game is wonderful. The composition and the scoring and the vocals that they have, underneath the gameplay are really fantastic. When you're on the river, you pass certain parts of the shoreline, that you want to maybe go and stop at, but if you don't steer fast enough, you've missed it. Or maybe there's multiple places that you want to stop at, but you don't have time to fully look around because, oh man, I'm about to run out of food and all I have is this rotten meat. Do I want to risk eating it and dying from food poisoning, or do I want to go find a fire so I can cook it? It's this constant, sacrifice or this compromise that you need to make. And I'm conflicted on how I feel about that because I like that it makes me feel conflicted. I think that they've done some really interesting design work in the gameplay, but I also want to see everything, and you can't see everything.
And that's, again, the question that I wonder if you get so good at the game that it's not that tricky to get to the end of it, but really the expert level of surviving in this game is really, taking in all of the environment, stopping at as many stops as you can before you get to the end, and having such confidence in how you survive that you can take on challenges And not to mention that actually going down the river is its own complicated trick. There's lots of objects, there's lots of things to dodge and get out of the way, and it's tricky when you are on the left side of the river, and then you can see that there's a church directly on the right side of the river. So when you leave a dock, you have to immediately start paddling furiously in the other direction to try to make it.
Well, and there's a mechanic in the paddling as well. If you don't paddle in rhythm, then you run out of energy, and then you have to wait for your energy bar to refill. And so you could completely miss your stop just because you didn't paddle correctly by doing the right, selection of button taps or whatever. It's a really intriguing game, something that I absolutely want to spend more time with and play and explore more and see how far I can make it down the river. I'm going to get to that signal someday.
And again, the aesthetic is really great. The art animates really well. The environments look really interesting. The sound is really good. It definitely feels like you're out in the middle of nowhere. It feels isolated. It's just really fun. The time of day changing makes a significant impact to how the world looks. When weather comes in, when it's really windy and cloudy and rainy, it looks a lot different. And so it's just fun aesthetically absorbing this world, but it is like a trial. You have to question what's wrong with us that we're doing this game where we're stressing ourselves out and eating questionable things and dying of thirst. It's so depressing because she'll actually fall to the ground and drag herself on the floor when she's about to die from starvation, and you're
I feel so bad.
Sorry, Scout, nothing I can do. I guess start over and try the whole thing again like a crazy person. But it was a game that was interesting that I think flagged mostly on my radar because of the visual aesthetic and because we don't often see a game like this. I think the whole river aesthetic, flame in the flood, meaning there actually was some kind of apocalyptic flood. So a lot of the waters that you're traversing, this quote-unquote river has never been here before. It's just this flood that's taken over that you're navigating these areas that aren't used to being a river, basically. And so that intrigued me, but I think just that kind of one more time aesthetic where it's okay, now I know that poisons me, now I know that cures it, now I know how to defend myself from that, I'll try again, and this time I'll get it. And so I'm curious how long the game is and how difficult it is to get to the end and get that piece and quote-unquote win the game. So it sounds like a game you're going to check out when we get maybe early access or when it comes to Steam.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a dog. Games with dogs.
And there's a dog. Come on, Fallout 4, everybody, Call of Duty Ghosts, it's all about the dog. But kind of fun, yeah, just the way he animates and follows you around. You mentioned he was an inventory option. When you're, going down the river and dodging things, he's right on the front of it barking and, he's with you the whole time. So, if Scout dies, that's fine, but anything to save the dog.
Not the dog, Aesop can't die.
Right, yeah, he just stares at you as you slowly starve to death. So yeah,
so sad.
Curious to check out more of the game and see if we get better at it. But it was fun hanging out with you Judges Week and checking the game out.
Yeah, it was.